I've now downloaded 5 different loops from YouTube. Well, I've downloaded full pieces of music and using Audacity, as you saw in the last video, cut out short excerpts of music that are ready for turning into proper loops. So how do I turn them into loops? Well, that's where you need something called the Apple Loops utility. And luckily, this little magical piece of software can be downloaded from Apple's website at the link given on the website. So when you first open the Loops utility, it's looking for a file to open, but I can just cancel that since I've got my windows nicely lined up here, and I can drag any loops that or any little audio excerpts that I want to turn into loops over into the Assets manager, which I can just open and shut with the Assets button here. So let's go and put the drum beat and the Fender bass line, which were made in the last 2 videos, over into the Asset Manager now. And as soon as you see that I do that, you can see I've got the drum beat highlighted at the moment. It tells you exactly how long it is. It's a very short little loop. This one, you remember there was only room to get 1 bar between the talking on that particular recording. It's got some more information about it. But it's got a few things that I want to change as well. It's identifying it at the moment as a non-looping audio file, and we want it to be a looping audio file because we want to use it as the basis for a drum beat. But also, by turning it to a looping audio file, which I've done there just by clicking on the looping button, that's going to enable it to lock to the tempo. Now down at the bottom at the moment, it's listing the tempo that it's being played back as 69.95, and you hear that. That's quite a rough sound. I can make it go all the way up to 138. Same beat. And the reason that the Apple Loops utility can do that is because as soon as I say it's looping, I check that the number of beats is right. 4 beats, I know that that's right, it's only 1 bar. And if I go into here in transients, you can see that the Apple Loops utility has recognized not only the beats, but also the notes in between the beats, the 16th. So it can actually break that loop down and make sure that different parts of it will align with the beat, and when it gets sped up and slowed down, it can on the fly make sure that that adjusts to a new tempo. So the original tempo was 89, it says there. It's identified that from the length of the file and the fact that I've said there are 4 beats. It's done that calculation. And you can hear that's playing back beautifully now. So that sounds really great. There's just a couple of things that I need to change in here. I want to go here and tell it that it's a drum loop, drum kit. And these descriptors as well, these can be useful for searching for this later on if you import it permanently into your GarageBand library. So single part, it's not electric, it's acoustic. Oh, in fact, we can go the whole way down the left column, except it's not melodic, and because it's an unpitched part, obviously being drums, I also don't need to set anything for the key or the scale type. So as soon as I press save, what that's going to do is it actually saves over the drum beat file there, and it's still got the same music in it, but it's also got that metadata, a little bit of code inside that file now that means when I drag it into GarageBand, it's going to know how to alter it to the tempo of the particular piece. So now we need to do the same with the bass part, and this is more or less the same process. It's just got a couple of different things in it because it's a pitched part. So first thing, we'll go and change it to looping, and you can see again it's correctly recognized that there are 16 beats. It's recognized the original tempo, and you can see that I've got parts of very similar tempo there, so that's going to be useful. They're going to fit together well. There's the transients. So that's looking pretty good. And we can go down to here and tell it that it's a synthetic bass. This is the one I need to set to electric, and you don't have to go down these little columns. They can make it easier for finding these things later on, but it's not really very important. I haven't added any information here for the author or comment, so I probably should put something in there just to help me catalog it later on. So maybe just put the address of the website in there. But here are the last 2 things that I need to do. I need to know, if possible, what the key and the scale type are. Now, if you're not a trained musician, you're going to find this a little bit tricky, but the best thing to do is just to rely on your ear. So if I play that through, what you're looking for is a note that the piece possibly starts and or ends on, returns to often, and that feels like the home note. Now in that, I'm hearing this note, boom, 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 ba-dum, boom, ba-dum, boom, and so that note, and quite often a good sign of the home note is that you can actually just sing it the whole way through, and it kind of never sounds out. So for instance, boom, ba ba bo, bo, ba bo, 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 bo. So that's working really well. I'm pretty sure that that is the home note. Now, what I need to do next is go to a piano, and if you don't have a piano, GarageBand has an on-screen keyboard built in under the window menu, so you can use that. And when I go to my piano, I'm going to try and find that note, bo. And I can see here that it's a G. So what I do is I go to here and I set it to G. Now, as I say, you can do that without any training by ear if you've got a good ear. The next bit is probably a little bit harder. Is the scale major or minor? Or both, even, perhaps if it's chromatic. So what we could do there is we try and sing through the riff. Bom, bom, ba-dum, bom, ba-da, 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 ba. And what we're looking for is the third note of the scale. Bom, 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 which in this case, if it's flattened, the third note, I know that it's minor. If it's bom, 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 then I would know that it was major. And of course, some pieces are chromatic and it's a bit hard to tell. And don't worry if you can't do this. You can actually still change the key and try remixing in GarageBand. Just set it to whatever you think it is for key, and leave it under here as either neither or both, and you'll actually be able to edit it further by ear in GarageBand. So do just try and set something there. All right, that's it. Now I'm just going to click save. It saves over the top in my loops folder, and now I'm ready to go to GarageBand.